All right, this lesson is on the type tool and also on the selection tool. This tool right here on the left-hand side that we have selected right now is the selection tool. And here is your basic type tool, okay? I'm going to teach these in conjunction with one another because they're frequently used together. So to use the type tool, you go ahead and click on the T here, and what you'll notice is that the basic type tool that's by default visible to you, you can use two different ways. One is to just create one basic line of text or one word by just clicking on the canvas once, and when you click on it, it'll give you this lorem ipsum, which is a fake type already there, but it's selected. That's why it's black like that. And if you start typing, whatever you type will replace whatever is there. Okay, so for example, if we just start typing. Okay, now once you're done with the type, if you want to exit out of this line of text or move the text or something, you would need your selection tool. Okay, that selects it, and now you'd be able to move it and position it in different places. Okay, if you want to edit the text, then you can either double click on it with your selection tool. Just double click on it and it'll highlight it and actually automatically switch to your text tool for you. Okay, or you can just click on it once and it'll find the different spot where you want to go and edit, okay, with your cursor. Now I'm going to go ahead and double click it just so that it's all selected. Once it's selected, you can manipulate the type. All the options for the type tool when that is selected are up here. So you can go in here and you can change the color of the type. You can change whether or not it has a stroke around it. You can change the size of that stroke. You can change the line of that stroke, how it goes around it. We're just going to leave ours the same for right now. You can change the opacity of the text, how transparent it is, so it'll get kind of lighter and darker. We're going to leave it at 100%. And you can change the font. So we'll go ahead and find a different font to play with. Okay. Also, you can change the style of it, so whether it's bold, oblique, light. We're going to go bold. And then you can change the font size. Okay, so those are the most common ways to manipulate the font, okay? If we click here on the selection tool and then anywhere on the canvas, it'll deselect it. So now you can see the changes there. If you want to manipulate it after the fact, you can just select it. And you don't have to go in here and select this with the type tool. You can actually just select it with the selection tool. And as long as it's selected, you can just go in here and change things in here directly. Okay, so that's the most common way to grow it. But one thing you should also know is that with this selection tool, you can grab it and you can grow it as well. One thing I caution you though, when you're working with type just in general as a general graphic design rule, is not to stretch the type either vertically or horizontally. So if you go in here and you grab this middle side handle and stretch it unproportionally, that's no good. It might fit the space that you want, but it's not what graphic designers do. So we're going to undo that. Edit, undo, or Command Z on a Mac, Control Z on a PC. And you don't want to stretch it this way. That's no good. That messes with the integrity of the font. So Command Z or Control Z on a PC. So instead, what we want to do is if you are going to grow it manually, you would want to hold down the Shift key on your keyboard and grab it by the corner one, not the side one, not the top one. You want to hold down Shift in the corner here. And what it will do is it will constrain the proportions so that it grows both height and width equally as it's growing. This is a way that you can manually calculate how big you want something in the space, but also hold the proportions. And then you release the clicker and then release the Shift key. Okay, and that will constrain the proportions. All right. Another way that you can use the same type tool here is to create paragraphs instead of single lines of text. And the way that this works differently is that instead of just clicking and releasing, you're going to click, hold down, and drag and create the area of the paragraph that you want to create. And then I'm going to release. And you'll notice that it typed it into this kind of paragraph format. And there's already text in here, but again, if you just type in your text, it'll replace it. And once you have that, if you were to keep going, it'll automatically turn it into a paragraph for you. So if we keep typing, all right. And now if you want to manipulate this, you would just select it all. And there's some down there that we can't select, but you can do a select all, and it'll select even text that you can't see, and then you can decrease the size of this. Once you have that in there, what you can do is if you go and switch back to your selection tool, you can go ahead and manipulate this. But this one, you cannot just grab the corner ends to change the scale and size. Or you'd need to use this here or another tool in here, which we're not covering yet. But basically, the best way to grow this text in size would be to, change the font size here. What you can do is that if you grab the edges of this, you can change the width of your column. Okay, so you can play around with that a little bit. So those are the two different ways you can use the basic type tool for one single line of text and for a paragraph format. Okay, other ways that you can use the type tool. Now, this is just one of the tools. If you hold down, you'll see all the different options available to you. This one is the area type tool. Once you learn how to create shapes, so for instance, like this one here, click anywhere on that shape. You'll notice it'll automatically fill in that shape. If you were to lower the size here, it'll kind of fill in that space. Okay, so you can keep going smaller. The smaller you go in, the more it'll get itself into that shape. And then if you'd have more text in here, it would kind of fill it in for you. Okay, the other tool that you have is the type on a path tool. And this one allows you to take a path, and you'll learn how to draw these eventually. Is if you click on the path here, it'll automatically fill the space here. If you wanted to replace that, you could just type directly in here. Okay. To deselect from there, click on your arrow, click anywhere off of that. Okay. For all of these, you can do manipulation, size, color, things like that. You have more tools in here. The vertical type tool. That one, if you were just to type, it would go stacked directly down like a motel sign would. You don't use that very frequently, but it's possible. The other option is the vertical type tool. That would fill the space like this one, but it would do it in a vertical fashion. Instead of going sideways, it would go up and down. Okay. The vertical type tool would do similar to this one here, but it would actually stack the letters on top of one another, so they would be going vertical. You can try those out. And then there's this type tool here, this touch type tool. What this allows you to do, this is an interesting one, it allows you to select any character in here and manipulate it separate from everything. So you could move it down, up, you could move it to the right, it would push everything over. You could also rotate it from this point here. And you could do this for several characters, so it allows you to manually do these to separate characters. Okay. All right, so those are your type options and the selection tool. If you have any questions, please be sure to contact me.